Welcome back. According to the World Health Organization, every 40 seconds someone loses their lives to suicide. And in commemoration of the Mental Health Day, the theme suicide prevention was chosen to raise awareness of the scale of suicide around the world and the role that each of us can play to prevent it. Now, the World Health Organization said about 800,000 people die every year through suicide, while Nigeria is ranked 67th in the world based on the number of suicide. October 10 was the World Mental Health Day. Now, as I was coming to the studio while waiting in traffic, had different conversations on radio about how people deal with mental health, how we're meant to relate with people, with one another, in order to prevent issues of mental health and tendencies to seek to commit suicide. Well, to help us understand this, our guest in Lagos is still stuck in traffic, but we'll go into Abuja. We'll have a guest to help us understand exactly what is going on. Before I introduce him, I'd like to give out a few statistics here. So 800,000 people die by suicide a year, making it a principal cause of death amongst many people between 15 to 29 years. Now, why are people wanting to kill themselves? Sometimes they say it's the way they are spoken to, the way certain things, life comes at them. They begin to want to get out of it as best as they can. So what can we do to help solve this matter? How can we help to make things just a little bit easier for the next man? The man who might be going through a mental health situation, a man who's going through a mental health issue might not exactly be ill. It might be the way he's spoken to, the way things are handled, the way we relate with each other counts a great deal. And that's why some people will say, why do we even need to go through the things we go through? Well, let me bring in Dr. Tunde Ojo, the head of Department Mental Health at the University of Abuja Teaching Hospital. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ojo.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Dr. Ojo, the figure that we put out there from the World Health Organization, 800,000 people committing suicide. What does that say about how we deal with this more, how we relate with this issue? Dr. Joe, let me ask that question again. The World Health Organization says about 800,000 people die every year between the ages of 15 and 29 years old. 800,000 people. What does that say of how we relate with one another as regards mental health?
Suicide has been in existence for a long time. It's as old as history. And so it's not something that is new to us, but presently there has been an increase in the reporting of suicide. And here in Nigeria, we have seen that this has been the case, and especially even among the young adults and youth. And what has been found globally is that suicide is the second leading cause of death among the youth and the younger adults. But what has been found out is that for all suicide, you find out that at least 90% of the cases of suicide has been associated with some form of mental health challenges or the other. There's no one that will commit suicide without having, more often than not, communicating it one way or the other in months or days leading to the eventual incidents. But it's just that maybe people take them for granted, or people weren't listening, or people did not offer the needed support that they should have gotten. And I think that this is why it is important that we speak on mental health awareness among the population, so that people will know that the issue of mental health is for everybody. It's not just for the specialists. Everybody needs to be aware, and everyone has a role to play in suicide prevention.
Okay, let's break it down a little bit here, Dr. Joe. The question, what is mental health?
Okay. So what is mental health? Mental health is when you are in your right frame of mind and you are able to live a productive life and able to cope with normal stresses of life and able to contribute meaningfully to your society. So when one is not able to achieve all this in all the domains, then there may be a problem in the mental health of such a person.
Okay, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Health is believed to have put out a figure of about 600 million living, as in with a population of 200 million. Nigeria has a high rate of mental illness, which implies that Nigeria has about 600 or there about 600,000 with. How will that work out if we have this number of people with mental illnesses in Nigeria alone?
Uh, well, so according to, it's a global statistic, according to the World Health Organization, that 1 in 4 people at one point in time or the other in their life will have some form of mental health challenges or the other. And so if you look at the population of Nigeria, which is about 200 million people, so 1 in 4, that puts say at 25% of the population, and that's about 50 million, that at least about 50 million Nigerians will have some mental health struggles at one point in time in their life. So that is what brings it up to like 50 million. I've seen some newspaper publications, publication talking about 60 million or even bigger numbers. But as per the World Health Organization statistics, what it boils down to is that in Nigeria, at least at one time or the other in their lifetime, at least 25%, 1 in 4 of the population, we have some mental health struggles or the other.
Okay, let's look at this statistics again. So 50 million, that means if you take all the people, Nigerian citizens that have mental illness and put them in a particular country and call it a country, or in a location and call it a country, that will be higher than the population of Spain, Canada, Morocco, Ghana, Australia, and the Netherlands and all of that. But even at that, Nigeria ranked number 1 in suicides on the African continent. There doesn't seem to be any legislature, apart from the 1958 Lunacy Act, that can help to manage this whole thing. What should be done?
Well, in Nigeria, the lunacy law has been there. It's quite archaic, and so that has overlived its usefulness. A lot of things in there need to be reviewed, and there have been effort towards this. But apart from the lunacy act, which is basically what the country is still adhering to, we've also had mental health policies in the country. The first of its kind was in 1993, and then the last one was in 2013. And unfortunately, none of this policy ever saw the light of the day. So in the country, it's not just about policy. We are good at making policies, but the most important thing is implementation. And of course, the mental health bill, which is a very important. This, if you are talking about policy without a legislative backbone that will actually enforce it, then we are still far away from it. And there have been about 2 previous attempts that has been made to pass the mental health bill, which is a bill that is very multi-sectorial in its approach and has everyone, all the stakeholders in mental health, not just in health, but in other sectors of the economy, putting their input and what is the role of everyone. All this was made provision for in this bill, but unfortunately, the bill has not been able to see the light of the day. But the National Association of Nigeria, Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, is working closely with other stakeholders in health sector in order to get this bill passed.
Okay,
And it has
Dr. Joe,
gotten to a very
Dr. Joe,
advanced stage. And,
Dr. Joe, if I may interrupt you,
public and
we'll have to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll look at what the society and the family can do in terms of managing mental health issues across the country. Please join us again. Welcome back. We still have the head of Department of Mental Health, University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, Dr. Tunde Ojo, with us. Dr. Ojo, we're talking about policy of the government as regards mental health management, laws and legislature. But let's look at how does the society deal with the issues of mental health? How do we as individuals deal with people who have issues of depression or, how do we deal with it?
Well, someone has said that there's no sick mind, that there's only a sick society. Just to say that the society has a lot to contribute to illnesses and prevention of illness. And so there's been an association, there will always be an association between mental health and the society. And then when we look at the society, both in its smallest unit and then in the bigger unit, you find out that from the family level and then the workplace, school, and then you get to government, everyone has a part to play in it. Starting from the family, the upbringing of a child, the home environment, the positive environment that is able to be created at the home space is very important. And so when we are talking about mental health promotion, the family and the society has a large role to play in it. When we talk about mental health, the things that come to people's mind is mental illness. But we are saying that mental illnesses can actually be prevented when we take the right step, when we do the right thing at the right time. And so at the family level, good parenting skills, the parent being there for their children, giving unconditional positive regard, not doing child abuse, because we have found out that in mental health that adverse early life events, adversity has a relationship, can actually be a risk factor to people developing mental illness later in life. A child that is being chastised all the time, that does not experience some loving and kindness at home, that may affect the self-esteem of that child. And so that child, a child that has a low self-esteem, can actually resort to other things in order to try to make up for this deficiency. And you find a lot of them going into substance abuse. You find a lot having negative peer pressure. And so these are things that can actually contribute to one developing mental disorder later in life. And also even the workplace, the school that children go to, a cohesive society, interaction, forming meaningful relationship. This is very important too in even contributing to the positive mental health of people. And also the role, the economy, the role it plays even in improving the mental health of people or contributing as a risk factor, where there are safety nets, where there are cohesive society, the sense of belongingness. These are positive things that can contribute to the mental health well-being of people. But with increasing urbanization, increased level of crime and unemployment, negative life events, all these are risk factors that can actually contribute negatively to mental health of people. So the society have a role to play. The family, as the smallest unit, of socialization has a positive role to play. Like I've said earlier, the parenting style is very important. Parents need to watch what their children are doing. They need to pay closer attention to them. And even in this age of social media, you find out that social media, communication, ICT, they are two-edged sword. They could play very positive role in our mental health, and if not used constructively, they could actually play negative roles too. We have seen occasions where people commit suicide by learning some skills, learning some things over the net on how to commit suicide. And the same thing also, you find that the social media is awash with a lot of very good resources that could actually help people's mental health. So that is that about the social media. And then also the general population, the society, in the workplace. Like I said earlier, that mental health is everybody's business. There's need for more awareness in the workplace, in the public space. There's need to be more conversation around mental health, that this can be prevented. This can be prevented. People can get help. And when someone eventually come down with one mental illness or the other, it doesn't mean the end of life for the person. A lot of people that commit suicide is because they were crying for help at a point in time, but they couldn't get that help. And
Okay,
even
Dr.
maybe
Joe.
people that were supposed to be of help to them, they don't know how to be of help to them.
Exactly.
They
I
are
was going
not
to
well
ask you that
aware.
question of, Dr. Joe, the question of when people cry out for help. Sometimes they don't really cry out. It's all bottled up inside. Maybe because of the society in which we are, where sometimes I feel like there are certain class of people that are not supposed to complain about or are not supposed to have certain kinds of issues bothering them. I mean, a man who has everything going for him he's not supposed to be depressed. A man or a lady who grew up in a fortified home, a home that has everything, went to the best of schools, has everything that he or she needs at every point in time, is not supposed to have issues with depression. But these things happen to human beings. So let's step back a little bit. We've looked at what causes them. We talked about poor self-esteem. We talked about abusive language. You've talked about lack of care. You've talked about poverty. You've talked about lack of legislation, peer pressure. So let's look a little bit at the solutions. How do we manage each other? I use the word each other because I'm talking about general society. I know you might want to break it down to families. How do we manage each other, manage the children, manage the adults, so that the issues of mental health can be reduced as much as possible?
Yes. People cry out, but they don't actually cry out, like you said. So you find out a lot of crying are actually silent crying. There are warning signs that you need to, if you are not schooled in it, if you are not aware of it, then you will know that, you won't be able to pick them. But these things, they are not rocket science. So some of the early warning signs, it's like maybe somebody that is usually up and doing, get withdrawn at work, somebody that is usually a team player, and you find out the person is not delivering on target or deadline, sleeping poorly, get easily irritable, and you know that this is something that is not really the usual pattern of this person. It may just be like a silent crying for attention. And to come down to your question that what can we do to help each other? And it boils down to increasing awareness about mental illness. Ignorance is what is fueling a lot of stigma and discrimination. Ignorance of what mental health issues are is what will make people either when they should actually see it as a problem and then connect people to the right services that they need, they will want to take punitive measures against those people. Ignorance and not being well aware of what mental health issues are is what will make somebody to have a mental illness at the workplace, and then the person gets admitted in the hospital, he gets back to work, is shown the way out because they believe that that person may not really be able to function well again. And also, our culture, we need to look at our culture very well. There is a very positive aspect of our culture, and there are negative ones that we need to work on. You know, there's a saying that rich men also cry. Like you said, that some people, you don't expect some people to come up and ask for help. Someone that is rich, or if somebody complains, I'm feeling somehow, I'm feeling down, they will say, this is unmanly of you. Somebody that's having depression symptoms, weakness, losing interest in what he usually enjoyed before, they will say, oh, I think you are a weak person. So the person will want to really keep this to himself or herself. But if we are well informed, and then we are also better positioned to be able to offer help to people, when people know that we have listening here, then they will want to speak up. And like I also say, that with urbanization, everybody is getting constricted into their own personal space. And that is one of the things that we have as asset in low and middle income countries, are our communal life. We living together as one. And this has been found to contribute positively to our mental health well-being. But this, we are fast losing. The society is fast getting disintegrated, and people are suffering of isolation even in the midst of a big population. And isolation has been found to be one of the risk factors that could contribute to depression, which is one of the major causes of suicide.
Now, that isolation thing. So you've just reeled out all the things that's going on around us. That is a cultural thing of tradition of. I mean, I'm a person of status. I can't be here. I don't deserve this. I can't be in that position. What would it take to be human? Would being human help?
Well, what it takes to be human is just to be yourself. It's just to be frank with yourself. And it's just to be open. Don't keep to yourself what you know that you can share with others. People, is a common saying that a problem shared is a problem absorbed. And even it's very therapeutic that when you are going through a situation, maybe a negative life experience, to find somebody, a body that you can actually ventilate, that you can speak up to. When people are able, some people, they just need a listening ear. It's quite unfortunate. There was this very brilliant chap who was a first-class student, a good poet, I think somewhere in the southeast of the country, and he eventually committed suicide. But he was open. He was talking about it on the social media, crying for help silently, but people weren't listening. When he was making those comments, crying for help, you will find out there were just few replies. And unfortunately, when he eventually committed suicide, there were hundreds and loads of feedback from people. And of course, the harm is already done. So people need to be open. We are all vulnerable, and asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of, it's a good thing. So people should ask for help, and be aware of yourself. Know when things are wrong with you. Know when things are not really going as it should be. And of course, being a brother's keeper, people could be losing it gradually and they don't know. But if you are close to them, you are able to see one or two things, and then you can offer to be of help to them. And help just mean being there for them. I'm here to talk this through with you. I'm here to support you. And then help could mean just looking for the right space where they could get the help and point them to it. So
Dr. Joe, let me just read out these tweets here. David Oluwakayode says, still on mental health, get the necessary help. He's talking about where you can get help for those that need to find help. Chatvice.com/ng, chatvice.com/ng, get there. But Festus Akingbe was saying, tackling stigmatization will help mental health will help in mental health management and reducing the suicide in Nigeria. But Dr. Joe, is it possible to self-stigmatize, as in you stigmatize yourself? And how does one come out of that?
Oh, it's very possible. There is public stigma and there is self-stigma, self-perceived stigma. And then, of course, one leads to the other, and there are quite a lot of relationship between public stigma and self-stigma. And the self-stigma is very dangerous, because even if the society is not discriminating against you, then if you are discriminating against yourself, I have this illness, I don't think I can come out of it, I don't think I can relate well with others. And so people that have some self-stigma may even reduce their own chances without the society reducing it. People that have mental illness, some of them will pull out of school, will be saying, doctor, I don't think I can pull through again. I'm a shadow of myself. I can't go back to school again. Oh, will someone marry me? Will I be able to get a job? You know, so what we talked about as professionals, we make a lot of advocacy for, and against systemic or structural discrimination, which is what we have at the public level in public institutions. But self-stigma, I will agree with you, is a big issue. And then there are ways to address that. And when we have clients that have this kind of problem, there are interventions, psychological interventions that we give to them. A lot of them, we need to work on their self-esteem. A lot of them have social skills deficiency, so we give them intervention that will improve their social skills and interpersonal skills.
All right, thank you very much.
This is some of the things that we do for them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tunde Ojo is the head of Department Mental Health, University of Abuja Teaching Hospital. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us about this issue of mental health. We all need to be a bit more humane. Be human and help be your brother's keeper, as he says. Look out for one another. Thank you so much. Sunrise will be back in a moment. Do stay with us.